Catherine Baker poured herself a cup of coffee and looked out the window at the gray morning sky over Rochester. Her mind was preoccupied with the bills that needed to be paid that week. She sighed and rubbed her temples, trying to ease the headache that was starting to creep in. It was already the third morning that week she had woken up feeling as if the whole world was pressing down on her. She sat down at the kitchen table, opened her laptop, and began checking her email. Among the spam and newsletters, one message stood out. A notification from the bank about an increase in the interest rate on her mortgage. Catherine felt a chill run down her spine. She knew she wouldn't be able to keep up with such a rate for long. Rochester, once so affordable, was quickly becoming unbearable. Rain began to fall outside, and Catherine felt her mood sink. She stood up and turned on the radio, trying to distract herself from her dark thoughts. A Beatles song lightened her spirits a little, but it wasn't enough to chase away the anxiety. She knew something had to change. When she poured herself a second cup of coffee, the phone rang. It was Emily, her daughter. "Hi, Mom. How are you?" Emily's voice was cheerful, as always. "I'm fine, sweetheart," Catherine replied, trying to hide her worries. "Just sorting through some paperwork." "Are you sure you're okay? You sound a little tired." Catherine hesitated. She didn't want to burden Emily with her problems. But something in her daughter's tone made her wonder. Did Emily really have any idea what was going on in her life? "Emily, can we talk about something?" Catherine asked, her voice sounding more serious than she intended. "Of course, Mom. What is it?" "Just, how are you, really?" There was a pause on the other end. "I'm fine, Mom. Really?" Emily answered, but her tone was more guarded now. Catherine felt a stab of worry. Something wasn't right. She knew her daughter, Emily, had always been an open book to her. But now? "Emily, are you sure? You know you can tell me anything, right?" "Yes, Mom, I know. It's just, everything's fine, really." Catherine didn't believe a word of it. She knew that tone. Emily used it whenever she was hiding something. But what? After the call, Catherine felt even more uneasy. She couldn't shake the sense that something important was slipping through her fingers. She tried to focus on planning her budget, but her thoughts kept circling back to her daughter. What could Emily be hiding? The rest of the day passed in a haze. Catherine went through her routines, shopping at the local Walmart, cleaning the apartment, but her mind was stuck on two problems: the rising expenses and Emily's strange behavior. Later, on her iPad, she started browsing real estate sites and articles about the cost of living in different parts of the country. Asheville, North Carolina, caught her eye with its artistic vibe and relatively affordable living. Catherine had always loved making handmade jewelry, and the idea of starting a small business in such a place felt tempting. As the evening came to an end, Catherine realized she was standing at a crossroads. Her life in Rochester was becoming more and more unbearable, and the thought of moving away grew increasingly attractive. But Emily's secrecy added another layer of complication. She wasn't sure if she could leave her daughter behind without knowing what was really going on. When she went to bed, the headache returned with full force. Catherine lay in the darkness, listening to the rain outside her window, and felt the world around her shifting. She knew she had to make a decision, but fear of the unknown and the fear of losing her connection to Emily held her back. Suddenly, a thought echoed in her mind. What if this is my chance to start over? The idea was both thrilling and terrifying. Catherine didn't know what lay ahead, but she knew she couldn't keep living in the same old status quo. She needed to untangle this knot, both her financial struggles and the secrets within her family. And the first step was moving to Asheville. The morning brought another headache, literally. Catherine woke up with a dull pain in her temples that didn't go away even after 2 painkillers. She lay in bed, trying to gather her thoughts, and then suddenly realized she needed to talk to Emily again. Not just talk. Get to the bottom of it. She picked up her phone and dialed her daughter's number, her heart pounding with anxiety. When Emily answered, Catherine got straight to the point. "Emily, we need to talk in person. I'm coming to see you today." "Mom, I don't know. I've got a lot going on." "Emily, I'm serious. I need to see you." There was another pause on the other end. Then Emily simply said, "Okay, come." Catherine felt a wave of relief mixed with unease. She knew this conversation was going to change everything, and maybe that was a good thing. She couldn't keep living in uncertainty any longer. Catherine pulled up to Emily's house in the Chicago suburbs, feeling her anxiety grow with every passing second. She had always been close to her daughter, but now she felt like a stranger. When Emily opened the door, Catherine saw a mix of worry and caution in her eyes. "Hi, Mom," Emily said, giving Catherine a quick, tentative hug. "Hi, sweetheart," Catherine replied, trying to sound calm despite the rising tension inside her. They walked into the house, and Catherine immediately noticed the changes. New Pottery Barn curtains, framed art on the walls. But something felt off. She spotted a child's toy on the floor, and her heart skipped a beat. "Emily, could I have a cup of coffee from your Keurig?" Catherine asked, trying to delay the inevitable conversation. "Of course, Mom." While Emily prepared the coffee, Catherine looked around the living room more carefully. This time she noticed the framed photos on the console, pictures of a child. Her world began to crumble. "Emily, who is this?" Catherine asked, her voice trembling. Emily turned, holding a mug of coffee. The tension on her face was undeniable. "Mom, I was planning to tell you." "Who is this child?" Catherine repeated, her voice rising. Emily set the mug down on the coffee table and took a deep breath. "She's my daughter. Her name is Sophia. It's hard for me to talk about this, Mom." Catherine felt as if she'd been punched in the stomach. She couldn't breathe. You adopted a child? Without telling me?" Catherine's voice was barely audible. Emily nodded, tears forming in her eyes. "I know I should have told you, but I was scared. I didn't know how you'd react." A wave of emotions crashed over Catherine. Shock, anger, betrayal. She didn't know where to begin. "Why didn't you say anything?" Catherine asked, fighting back tears. "I was afraid you'd disapprove," Emily answered, her voice shaking, "and I didn't want to hurt you." Catherine sank onto the lazy boy sofa, struggling to process what she'd just heard. She felt betrayed, abandoned. She didn't know what to say, how to respond. "Mom, please, try to understand," Emily began, but Catherine raised her hand to stop her. "I need time," Catherine said coldly. "A lot of time." The conversation was over. Catherine stood and walked to the door without looking back. She didn't know what would come next, but she knew she couldn't stay in that Chicago suburb. The idea of moving to Nashville now felt like salvation. Driving back home, Catherine felt a storm of emotions: anger, pain, but also determination. She knew she had to start over, to leave the past behind, She began outlining a plan, selling her house through Keller Williams, packing with U-Haul containers, moving. Back home, Catherine threw herself into preparations. She researched shopping spots in Nashville, sorted through her belongings, decided what to take and what to sell on Facebook Marketplace. She also started reading about Nashville, its culture, its people, its business opportunities around Franklin Road. As the days passed, Catherine's resolve grew stronger. She knew the move would be difficult, but she was ready to build a new life, to leave behind the hurt and betrayal. Yet thoughts of Emily and her granddaughter haunted her. She didn't know if she could ever forgive her daughter or see her granddaughter. The uncertainty tore at her, but Catherine knew she had to keep moving forward. When the packing was nearly done, Catherine received a message from Emily. "Mom, I love you. Please don't disappear from my life." Catherine felt a stab in her heart, but didn't reply. She didn't know what to say. Moving day finally came, and Catherine was ready. She knew new challenges awaited her in Nashville, but she was determined to face them. She was ready to leave the past behind and begin again. Catherine stood before the nearly empty house, feeling a mix of relief and anxiety. She had done it, made the decision to move, and started to make it happen. Now, all she had to do was get to Asheville and start her new life. She took a deep breath, savoring the silence of the empty house. The sound of her footsteps echoed through the vacant rooms, reminding her of the memories she was leaving behind. As she got into her car, Catherine felt a wave of emotions wash over her. She drove through the familiar streets of Rochester, past places where she had spent most of her life. Every corner, every house brought back memories, happy and painful ones. She thought about Emily and her granddaughter, whom she had only recently learned about. Thinking about them hurt, but Catherine knew she needed to move forward. As she drove, the landscape outside her window changed. Cities gave way to suburbs, and then just roads stretching out into the distance. Catherine felt the tension in her body slowly ease. She turned on the radio, and the sounds of music filled the car. She listened half-heartedly, lost in her thoughts. When she stopped at a gas station to fill up, Catherine saw a text message on her phone from an unknown number. She thought it might be a wrong number at first, but curiosity got the better of her. She opened the message and saw it was from Emily. "Mom, I know you're angry, but please text me when you get there. I love you." Catherine felt a pang in her heart. She didn't know how to respond. Part of her wanted to text back and say she loved Emily, but another part was too angry and hurt. She decided not to respond right away, to wait until she got to Asheville and then figure out what to do next. After filling up, Catherine got back in her car and continued driving. The road was long, but she was ready. She listened to music and thought about the future. Asheville seemed to her a town full of possibilities and new beginnings. She envisioned her handmade jewelry store and the people who would support her endeavors. When she finally arrived in Asheville, Catherine was struck by the town's beauty. The hills, green parks, and old-fashioned buildings all created a cozy and peaceful atmosphere. She pulled up to her new home, a small cottage on the outskirts of town. It was charming and lovely, surrounded by trees and flowers. Catherine stepped out of the car and took a deep breath, feeling the fresh mountain air fill her lungs. She smiled, feeling a surge of hope. This was it, the start of her new life. Over the next few days, Catherine settled into her new home. She unpacked, arranged the furniture, and did everything to make the new house feel like her own. She also started exploring the town, getting to know the locals, and looking into opportunities for her business. Gradually, Catherine began to feel more confident in her new surroundings. She found a few stores where she could sell her jewelry, met people who shared her passion for handmade crafts. She started working on setting up her store, pouring all her energy into it. But despite her successes, Catherine couldn't shake off thoughts of Emily and her granddaughter. She often wondered how they were doing, how their lives were going. She still hadn't responded to Emily's message, and it was weighing on her. She knew she needed to make a decision, but she wasn't ready yet. One day, while Catherine was working in her garden, she saw her neighbor, an elderly woman with a kind smile. They introduced themselves, and the neighbor invited Catherine over for dinner. Catherine accepted, and that evening she met the local folks for the first time. They were friendly and warm, and Catherine felt herself starting to become part of the community. Over dinner, Catherine talked to her neighbors about her business, and they offered their help. They gave her contacts of people who could assist her with her store, and Catherine felt grateful. She was beginning to see that Asheville was more than just a town. It was a community that had welcomed her. As the evening drew to a close, Catherine realized she was starting to feel at home. She still missed Emily and her granddaughter, but the pain wasn't as sharp. She knew there would be new challenges ahead, but she was ready. Back home, Catherine sat at her desk and looked at her phone. She still hadn't responded to Emily's message. She took a deep breath and started typing. "Emily, I'm here. I love you. We'll talk soon." She sent the message and felt a sense of relief. The first step towards reconciliation had been taken. Catherine stared at her phone, waiting for a reply from Emily. She felt a mix of excitement and anxiety, unsure of how her daughter would respond to the message. She tried to focus on settling into her new home in Asheville, North Carolina, but thoughts of Emily and her granddaughter kept coming back. The next day, Catherine decided to visit the local arts community in the River Arts District to learn more about opportunities to sell her jewelry. She was pleasantly surprised by how many people were passionate about handmade goods and how many boutiques were willing to showcase her work. It was exactly what she needed, a community of like-minded people who could support her new venture. As she walked back home through the streets of Asheville, Catherine saw a message from Emily pop up on her phone. Her heart skipped a beat as she opened it. "Mom, I'm glad you came. I love you too. Can we talk on the phone?" Catherine felt a wave of relief and joy. She quickly dialed Emily's number, and within seconds they were connected. At first, the conversation was tense, but little by little they began to open up. Emily explained why she hadn't told her mother about the adoption right away. She had been afraid of her reaction and didn't want to hurt her feelings. Catherine listened, trying to see things from her daughter's perspective. She realized that Emily had acted with the best intentions, even if she hadn't gone about it the right way. They talked about the granddaughter, and Catherine heard her name for the first time, Leila, as Emily described her. Catherine felt a spark of love growing in her heart for this little girl she had yet to meet. After talking with Emily, Catherine felt calmer. She understood that although the wound was still fresh, it had begun to heal. She knew it would take time to accept everything that had happened, and that her relationship with Emily would need to be rebuilt gradually. The next day, Catherine decided to spend time in her studio creating new pieces. She sat at her workbench, and her hands moved instinctively, shaping beautiful designs out of beads and silver. For her, work was therapy. It helped her relax and focus on the present moment. As she worked, Catherine thought about her business. She realized that Asheville was the perfect place for her shop, especially with the flow of tourists along West Broad Street. The area was full of visitors, and people were willing to pay for unique, handmade pieces. She began planning how to present her jewelry at local fairs and through neighborhood boutiques. Within a few days, Catherine visited several shops and craft fairs to showcase her work. She was pleasantly surprised by the response. People were ready to buy her jewelry, and some even offered to help promote her business on social media. Catherine began to feel confident in her decision to move to Asheville. She realized it had been the right choice, not only for her business, but also for her personal life. She started building connections within the local community, attending events on Patches Rock Road, which gave her a real sense of belonging. Still, despite her progress, Catherine couldn't shake the feeling that something was unresolved. She knew she needed to see Emily and Lila face to face to truly move forward. Organizing that meeting became her new goal. A week later, Catherine received an unexpected offer from a local artist with a studio on Clinchfield Avenue who wanted to collaborate with her. She invited Catherine to create a joint jewelry collection, and Catherine was intrigued. It was exactly what she needed, a partnership that could take her business to the next level. Catherine accepted the offer, and together they began designing the new collection. It was an exciting and inspiring collaboration, and Catherine felt she had found a kindred spirit. When the collection was finished, Catherine and her new partner presented it at a local fair in Asheville. The event was a huge success. People were buying their pieces, and Catherine felt proud of herself and her work. After the fair, Catherine got a message from Emily. She and Lila would be coming to Asheville the following week. Catherine felt both excitement and nerves, but she knew this was an important step toward reconciliation. She began preparing for the visit, tidying up her home on Montebello Road and thinking about how she would introduce Emily and Lila to her new house and her business. She realized that the visit would be not only about mending her relationship with her daughter, but also about meeting her granddaughter for the very first time. As the day drew closer, Catherine's heart beat faster. She knew this would be a defining moment in her life, and she was ready for it. She was prepared to open a new chapter, one where she would be not just a mother, but also a grandmother and a successful businesswoman. Catherine stood by the window, looking out at the street while her fingers worked automatically, shaping a new piece of jewelry. Her mind was consumed with thoughts of the upcoming meeting with Emily and Lila. Excitement and nervousness swirled together inside her, creating a complicated feeling she couldn't quite untangle. She knew this meeting would be important, not only for their relationship, but also for her own understanding of herself in a new role. As a grandmother, a few days before Emily's visit, Catherine decided to do a deep cleaning of the house. She wanted everything to be perfect, to make Emily and Lila feel at home. She carefully cleaned each room, arranging her new jewelry pieces on shelves and stands throughout her house in the North Carolina mountains. They weren't just decorations. They were a reflection of her creativity and her new identity. When she finished, Catherine stepped back to take in her cozy home. Pride swelled in her chest for what she had built here in Asheville, a city known for its art galleries and craft shops. This wasn't just a new house, it was a fresh start. She moved into the kitchen to prepare treats for her guests, classic chocolate chip cookies and fresh fruit tarts. Her hands moved automatically, preparing the familiar recipes she had once loved to make for Emily. The next morning, Catherine woke up early, feeling that same mix of excitement and nerves. Emily and Lila were expected around 1 o'clock. To pass the time, she spent the morning working on new jewelry pieces. As she sat at her workbench, her fingers moved quickly, twisting wire and threading beads into delicate designs. She was fully absorbed in her work when the doorbell rang. Catherine stood and opened the door. Her heart skipped a beat when she saw Emily and the little girl standing just behind her. Lila was smaller than Catherine had imagined, with big eyes and curly hair. A rush of love and tenderness washed over her for this little girl who was her granddaughter. Emily looked slightly tense, but the smile on her face softened the moment. "Hi, Mom," Emily said, stepping forward to hug her. Lila watched curiously but didn't resist when Emily gently led her closer. "Hi, sweetheart," Catherine said softly to Lila. She hugged Emily carefully and then bent down to greet the little one. "I'm so happy to see both of you." Inside, Emily couldn't help but notice the changes. "Mom, your house is beautiful," she exclaimed. "You've done such a great job making it your own." Catherine smiled with pride. "Thank you, honey. I wanted it to feel warm and welcoming." Meanwhile, Lila wandered around, touching different objects and examining Catherine's jewelry displays. Catherine watched her with a smile, overjoyed to see her granddaughter playing with a bead kit at the kitchen table. Over lunch, they talked about many things, from Catherine's jewelry business to Emily and Lila's daily life. The conversation was a little stiff at first, but gradually they relaxed, chatting more freely over a homemade meal of roast chicken and baked vegetables. Afterward, Catherine invited them into her studio to show some of her latest projects. Lila was fascinated by the sparkling beads and wire, and Catherine happily showed her how to make simple little pieces. As the day drew to a close, Catherine felt a deep sense of contentment. She realized that despite the rocky beginning, she had managed to build a new home and a new life for herself in Asheville. And now, with Emily and Lila there with her, she felt she had discovered a new purpose. When it was time for them to leave, Catherine hugged them both tightly. "I love you both so much," she said, tears filling her eyes. Emily smiled, hugging her back. "We love you too, Mom. We'll be back soon." Catherine stood at the door watching them drive away, her heart full of gratitude for the day and for the chance to be with the people she loved. She knew challenges still lay ahead, but in that moment she was simply happy. Happy to be herself, a mother, a grandmother, and an artist. After they left, Catherine returned inside, feeling calmer and more at peace than she had in months. She realized that her move to Asheville wasn't just about changing her address. It was the beginning of a new chapter, and this chapter promised to be filled with love, creativity, and new opportunities.